This is the What's Next podcast, Houston's #1 platform where I invite creatives to share their journeys and give us a depiction of their visions. Most importantly, the last question I'll ask is, what's next?
Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Dear John, the iconic legend Quincy Jones said, "To know where you came from makes it easier for you to get where you're going." Sean Diddy Combs said, "Everyone has challenges and lessons to learn. We wouldn't be who we are without them." If 2018 and the last 6 years taught you something, it's that anything is attainable with the right focus and determination. Continue to build. Continue to promote your vision. Continue to inspire creativity and make more creatives. In closing, Nas said, "No idea is original. There's nothing new under the sun. It's never what you do, but how it's done. The first chapter of your vision's movements is done. However, you're still a visionary. Peace and blessings. John Ross."
Yo, it feel like 95, Sachi on my body, Biggie, Jigga, Puffy, all that ballin' is a hobby, and I'm wildin' in my wallet.
Houston, Texas, welcome back to episode number 44 of the What's Next podcast, a production of Still Visionary, Inc. My name is John Ross Dike II, and Zen, before we get started with the episode, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to introduce your social media handles.
Okay. On Facebook, I am Zen Ase, Zenase. Also, Zen Ase Poetry, Zenase Poetry. On Instagram, same thing. Zen Ase Poetry, all smushed together, Zenase Poetry. I also have a website, laughsandlyrics.com. And laughs is spelled with a Z, and is spelled out, A-N-D. So laughsandlyrics.com. You can see the shows coming up. Sponsors can sponsor the show. You know, we do a lot of different packages for sponsorships. Vendors can vend at the show. And then, of course, you can buy tickets. You can buy merch. I have shirts. I have water bottles. I have pins and bags and all kinds of things with laughs and lyrics on it.
Okay. Like I said before, my name is John Ross Dike I, and you can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at John Ross Dike and still_visionary. If you would, connect with me on LinkedIn, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my Facebook page, and visit my website at stillvisionary.com. In front of us, directly in front of us, shout out to my brother Clint Brownlow, who is persistent on me being better. So he's like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I appreciate that type of criticism, critique, and outlook, so that way I can further the brand. So I have all my T-shirts that I sell. These are personal company T-shirts. I also press T-shirts as well. Shop stillvisionary.com/apparel. How are you?
I am wonderful.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm great. I woke up this morning thinking, okay, well, my wife and I have been on a healthier tip. So from the 15th to the 31st of December, we've said that we need to run no less than 2 miles a day. And whoever doesn't do that owes the other a price tag. So it incentivizes us to get out there and run a little bit. So I'm going on 22 days strong. I ran 3 miles this morning, and I feel great. Excited to do this podcast.
Well, I don't know the last time I've run a mile. I used to be an athlete. I used to run every day, but that was many years ago, like 20 years ago.
No doubt.
15 years ago, something like that. Long time.
So the first time I met you, okay, was at the
I Am a Survivor seminar.
I Am a Survivor seminar.
Yes.
Okay. And I remember you performing, and we'll talk about that piece a little later on because I got to hear it again.
Okay.
And this time it's on wax, so now I can go back and listen to it over and over and over again. But I remember you performing, and I thought, I think you may have spoken before or after you performed, and I remember saying, wow, she has a lovely voice.
Thank you. Thank
No
you.
doubt, no doubt. She has a lovely voice, and I got to get on the podcast, right? So, how did you get involved with that whole seminar?
I have known Goddess Fee for over a year now. I met her at an open mic, the Last Concert Cafe, and Flo Rida was going to perform. So she was working with Flo Rida at that time, and so I went up and performed, and I didn't even stay for the Flo Rida performance. So that was the first time I met her, and then I met her again at a Moetries. A Moetry used to have an open mic the first and third Wednesday of each month. And so we ran into each other again, and that's when I first learned about her seminar, but I was already booked the first year.
Okay.
And then when it came around again this past year, a few months ago in the summer, she asked me about being on it, and that's how I got involved, because she had heard some of my pieces. I have pieces about being a survivor of domestic abuse. So she was kind of touched by that piece, and she wanted me to be on the show and basically share my story. That actually wasn't the piece. I don't remember doing that piece at the I Am a Survivor seminar. I might have, but then also I felt that there's a lot of other people suffering with other things, the fatherhood piece,
No doubt.
Kids that are suffering because of decisions their parents have made. And so I decided to do that piece because I wanted to shine light on that issue, which I think is a big problem in our community, maybe more than other communities.
Okay. And that's how you got involved with that.
Yeah, so that's how I got involved with that.
Okay. Because like I said, like I've told you, I think I told you that day, and I told you while we were getting ready for the episode, I just think that your voice is magnificent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I say that because it was real soothing, not only to hear you. A lot of times when I hear poets, their voices might crack, or their voice might be too low, or they might be timid in their performance, but your voice was just like, without a microphone, it was just powerful.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
So I knew that I had to sit down with you one time and get on the podcast. And for, again, like I say, this is my continuing education. So what I mean by that is I listen back to my projects over and over again and pick and pull the gems that I want to utilize in my own journey to be able to better myself off. So I know that this episode will be very enlightening for me in the future.
Well, thank you. Well, actually, my voice is where I got my nickname, actually.
Okay.
I have a piece I can do to kind of tell you that story if you want me to do it.
Listen, this podcast is all about the journey. So go ahead. Any story you got, okay. I just love to hear it.
So I'll do this piece, but I got the nickname Zen back in college, okay. And this is kind of a story of that, the Zen part, and then how the Ase came about.
Okay. Good, you beat me to the point because I want to ask you where you got your name from, but you beat me to the point. Go ahead.
My name is Zen Ase, okay. And I will now unfold the story behind that name and the lessons that it holds. 20 years ago, I worked my way through college ed. Waitressing, I paid the bills, 3 jobs in all. I bled. A day arrived so full of strife, coworkers craved the pill that kept a smile upon my face when they all wanted to kill. What are you on that gives you rest? I need some of your Zen, they stressed. I smiled and just confessed. My faith is all I need. Fast forward 10, and once again a day arrived with rage, and in the midst of chaos, others marveled at my grace. Hung around, embraced my calm, my total centeredness. Again they intoned Zen you be, but I did not see that in me until I embraced my destiny. I had to give in. It took me 20 years to see the purpose of my life, to calm and soothe and to inspire, to dim effects of strife. Ase came next, a word that means so be it, like amen. Yoruba in origin, it bonds me to lost kin. Yet deeper still, like Shayla, written in the Psalms, it means be still and meditate on what you read, ponder long. Yet even more, it means my words exhale with force. They live, they breathe, they change the world, they alter my own course. A writer and a poet, this name states my destiny to exhale living, breathing words that change humanity, that encourage people to consider truth and challenge them to grow, because at the end of everything, self-knowledge must unfold. And so now you know my purpose and you understand my plan. You have just entered the state of Zen. Never be the same again.
I think that's what it was about your poetry to me. It always sounds so like a conversation. Like you're not purposely performing, you're just talking. And even in this poem right here, I'm just like, I didn't even know when you started. But when you got into it, I'm like, okay, she's now going, because it just sounded like you were just talking at first.
Yeah. Some people have said that as a criticism of me, and then others have said that it makes it conversational and they feel a part of the poem.
Yeah.
So I guess there's good and bad in that, but I'm a storyteller, and I feel that poetry is storytelling. And so Zen came from the fact that people would come hang around me because they said, just talk to me.
Yeah.
Just talk to me. Just listening to you calms me down. And they would call me on the phone. I just needed to hear your voice. Okay, I can go back to work now. Whatever you were doing, you can go back to that.
No doubt.
So they would just need to, for some reason, my voice would calm people down. I was doing a lot of mediating between like boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff like that, trying to get people to come. So people started calling me Zen. I need to go hang around. I need to get some Zen, Zen. So that's where Zen came from. My co-host, Kay Jones Hart, she says, I don't smoke anything. She says, well, that's why you don't smoke anything. You are weed. She says that I have the same effect on her.
Yeah.
That that has on her, that I calm her down, that I mellow her out. So that's where Zen came from. So I've been called Zen for 25 years. And that's where Zen came from. So,
and the Ashe part.
And the Ashe part came from, I've been on a journey to find out who I am as a Black person all my life, but especially the last 4 or 5 years, especially, it just became more important to me. I did have my DNA done.
Yeah.
And then I was actually on Facebook. I had made my name, and I had my real name. Yeah. Because Zen Ase is not my real name. I had my real name on Facebook, but teachers started getting in trouble for a lot of things, like having a glass of wine in a picture or something like that. And I didn't want to have my real name out there anymore. And so I just put Zen, and Facebook said, you need a last name. Well, I didn't want to put my real last name because it kind of seemed like that would defeat the whole purpose. Yeah. And so I had been hearing Ashe, Ashe, Ashe a lot. People say it all the time, like amen, like so be it, like, yes, right on, whatever. So I was like, Zen Ashe, that sounds real cool. I like that. And so that's where that came from. So actually Facebook is kind of to blame for me coming up with a second name, because I was just going to be Zen. And I had performed as Zen years ago, like 3 years ago. And then I took kind of a little hiatus. And then when I came back, I was Zen Ashe. Okay. So. Okay. And it was a lot more complete. It really encapsulated my whole journey into defining myself for myself. Yeah. I think as Black people, we have to define ourselves for ourselves, because if we let society define us, we won't fit a lot of roles. I would be the angry Black woman. Yeah. I would be the stereotypical single mother, the woman that can't keep a man. I would be a lot of things. That's not me. Yeah. So I have to define myself for myself. And so Ashe was kind of about defining myself for myself. And not being defined by what society would want to say, or tradition, or religion, or age, or anything. Just, I'm going to define myself.
So as Zen Ashe, do you, and versus your real name, do you feel like you filter all your poetry through that, or do you write some things sometimes as your original name, or how do you? I do
both. I publish nothing under Zen Ashe. Everything that I've published has been published under my real name, Marlena Zen, it might be, and then John's. So I've published, I don't know, 12, 13 things under that name. My book will probably be published. I'm working on a book, and I've been kind of working on it on and off for a while. I haven't been consistent. I'm probably going to publish that under Zen Ase because I'm probably going to sell that at my shows and things like that. Yeah. And that's going to be a lot of the pieces that I perform.
Okay.
You know, because spoken word is very different from page poetry.
Yeah. So I've heard.
Yeah. So it's very different. You know, spoken word has to have a rhythm, a cadence. It has to have a story. It has to have something that people can grab a hold to when they listen to it. Page poetry, they're reading it, so it doesn't have to have that same. It's a different. There are many pieces I've written. I can't perform them. Yeah. Because they won't work. Yeah. You know, and then there's some pieces that are much better for me to perform than they would be written because. Written, you'd have to know the rhythm because it won't flow exactly the way you read. Like, I'll send a piece to my sister and she'll say, "You got to read this to me because I, you know,
she
I can't,
you
know." So they're two different. People think that they would be the same, but they're not. They're not the same.
Do they have the same power though?
They do. They have a lot of power. Words have a lot of power.
Yeah. So creativity comes from experiences. Take me back to what led you into becoming a spoken word artist.
I never saw myself as a spoken word artist. I was like I said, a writer ever since I was in elementary, and started writing poetry a lot. And then when I got married, I got away from it. I didn't write for a very long time. And then when I got divorced, I started writing again, but I went to a poetry show with Seven, actually. That was the first time that I actually got up and recited poetry at the Sugar Hill Lounge 3 years ago. And I didn't even think that I would ever be a spoken word artist. I thought that I would recite my poetry, never memorize it. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, I don't think I could ever do that. And she was like, why? It's your words. If you can memorize anything, you should be able to memorize your words. And when she said that, I was like, she's right. And then I had a friend of mine who had a radio show at the time, and a video, I guess a YouTube video that he did. And he said, you know, I would love to put you on, but you got to memorize your pieces. And so I was like, okay, all right. And so I went and memorized the first piece that I did, really short piece. Oh my gosh, so short. And I did that at where I told you I met Goddess Fee. I did that at the Last Concert Cafe. So I did 3 pieces there that I memorized, very first time that I memorized anything. And then I went again, and I went to Poetry Lounge Sundays, which wasn't called Poetry Lounge Sundays at the time. It was at the Alley Cat. It was called something else. I think it was called Eats, Beats, and Poetry. And I performed there. And that was a really interesting experience because I got up on stage, place is packed, there's no seats, it's hot, it's crowded, you know, and I get up on stage and there's beaming lights, and I look out and I'm talking, and then I look out beyond the first 2 rows and it's absolutely black. I can see nothing. And it threw me off. I lost my line. I totally lost the line, and I made up something, and I just kept going. And I called a friend of mine. I was like, I looked out in the audience. It was absolutely black. I lost a line. He said, go in your closet, close the door, and practice in the dark. And I said, okay. And so now I do that. So now if that ever happens on stage again, I'll be fine because I stand and practice in the dark, you know, so it'll never throw me off again. But I didn't expect that. I didn't know that you could only see like 10 people and then the rest is just a sea of blackness. Yeah. So that's the things that you learn when you go on stage. It's very interesting. So that's kind of my journey to becoming a spoken word artist. And then I was doing all these open mics, and I was taking down a bunch of numbers, just networking. I don't know why, just because. And then I was at the Dollar Hookah Lounge, and I was at a open mic, Peace, Poetry, and Paint, Naomi Love, and there were only like 3 artists that showed up. And the owner said, I like your poetry. Yeah. I want you to make a show for me. this open mic thing, there's only 3 people that showed up. I want to have a whole show. I want to have a flyer. I want to know who's going to be on the show. Can you do that for me? And I said, give me a month. I didn't know anything about making a show. Never made a show before. Didn't know who to make flyers. Didn't know a DJ. Didn't know anything. But a door opened. Why not walk through it?
Yeah.
And so I started talking to a bunch of people. And, you know, somebody referred me to Kay, and Kay referred me to Shasha Francis, who does my flyers. And she referred me to the first DJ I work with, and we put together a show, and it was really a blessing. I have to give God credit, because every single person that was in my phone book that I talked to and asked to be on the show, every person said yes except one. So we had a show of amazing artists the very first time that we went out and did Laughs and Lyrics. It was an amazing show. The vibe was incredible. And I said, oh my God, this is incredible. And I realized that the thing about my show, everybody has their own whatever they do. I don't put on a show to make money, in a sense. I don't put on a show to get famous.
Yeah.
I put on a show for an escape. My mantra is get Zen, stay Zen, spread Zen. When I started doing, you said what was my journey to being a spoken word artist, I used to write to release stress.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough that page could do for me. I couldn't get enough out.
Yeah.
And then I started performing because I felt all that energy coming from the audience. I felt that bond. And then that wasn't enough. But when I created that first show and I was seeing all of these artists that came together, and we had this incredible unity that we created, and the audience was involved, and people are hugging each other after the show, and they're taking selfies, and it was like church. That's the closest thing I can explain it to. That's the closest thing I know to. And I had walked away from the church at that time because it was not what I was going to church for. I wasn't getting.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is my church. This is the feeling that I had when I was in church. I felt community. I felt oneness. I felt love. I felt, bonding. I felt peace. Ooh, this is good.
Yeah. And
so after that, I was like, okay. So I'm real particular about people that are on my show. I'm open to a lot of different genres. It's not about the genre. It's not about what, you do. It's about who you are. Mm-hmm. Are you authentic?
Yeah. Because
when they bring that authenticness, that authenticity to the stage, that's when people connect.
Yeah.
If you're packaging yourself because you think this is popular,
yeah,
then that's not real. It's the authenticity that people can feel when it comes from the heart. People can feel when you really went through it.
Yeah.
People can feel that journey. And so that's what my show is about.
You're talking about the show you do currently.
The show that I do currently, the show that we've done 36 shows. We just did our 36th show last night.
So you do one every month?
Every month, sometimes a couple of times a month. It just depends on if people request it.
So roughly 3 years, but in between those 3 years, you may.
Well, actually, I've been doing the show for 14 months. I started the show 14 months ago. I've been performing as a spoken word artist for 3 years.
Okay.
But I only started doing the show 14 months ago.
Okay. Yeah. So when I met you at the I Am Survivor seminar, mm-hmm. you were doing a piece based off of what? Off of domestic violence.
I think I did 2 pieces that time. I think I did do the domestic violence piece, and the second piece that I did, the fatherhood piece. That was because poets inspire other poets.
Yeah.
And I had heard I Am Jarrell do this piece about Sunday. And it just hurt my heart so much. And then I had heard Brother Malcolm do this piece about begging to see his son. And it just, oh my gosh, I was sitting in the audience and I was just, it just hurt. It hurt so bad. And then Scott Free did a piece. He did a piece where he uses his finger as a gun and talks about his exes, aiming at his heart and aiming at his heart and aiming at his heart. And I was like, oh, this keeps coming up. I can't deal with it. Oh, Jesus. And so, I left that last show and I was like, I can't do it. I can't hear another piece about fatherhood. And so finally I was like, I gotta say something.
Yeah.
I'm a woman. And my son was going through it. My son was going through it too. And I had never really seen my son break down and just, sobbing, torn between wanting to give up, throwing the towel. She says, I ain't this and that. I'm going to show her, all that. And please, please, please give me a chance. Let me see my son, alternating back and forth, not knowing what to do, making rash decisions, just being reckless, being angry, acting out. I'm like, God, all of this because he can't see his child, and so I was seeing it at home. Yeah. I was seeing it when I went out to these open mics. It just was tearing me up. And I was like, okay, I have never heard a woman speak on this subject. Okay. Since I keep seeing it and it's bothering the hell out of me, I'm going to have to write a piece. And I did. I sat down and wrote that piece, and I performed at the Improv. I performed it dozens of times since then. And I'll actually tell you a story about that piece. I was at HEB the other day. It's probably about a month ago. And there had been a young lady that I walked up to her. I saw her in the produce section, beautiful black sister. She's in her 20s, nose pierced. She's wearing like a little half shirt, and I'm like, I know this girl. And I looked at her and I said, I know you. You performed at my show. I had an open mic on the South Side at the Key. And she had asked if she could perform. She got up and played the guitar, and she did this beautiful, song, Spanish, English song. And I was like, I know you. You performed at my show. And she said, yes, Zen. I said, yeah. I don't remember her name. I still don't remember her name, but she's Zen. And she hugs me, and she goes, I was just telling my girlfriend about you. I was like, really? She said, I got to tell you a story. You did that piece. Fathers are not disposable. She remembered the title of the piece. I said, yeah. She said, I was in the audience and I realized that I had treated my father like he was disposable. And she said, I hadn't talked to my father in 19 years. And when I left that show, it was like 11 o'clock at night. She said, I called that bastard up. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, we talked for hours and we went out to lunch the next day, and I have a relationship with my father because of your poem. And I felt really humbled. I was like, wow, it was a beautiful thing. I felt really touched. The power of words, they can knock down barriers, right? Yeah, you don't even know who's in the audience.
For sure. Yeah. What'd that poem sound like? Because I'm ready to hear it.
Okay. Fathers are not disposable. I heard a poet say his favorite day was Sunday because he got to see his son only one day before his ex disappeared and left him no day. Heartbroken, son stolen, he had to move on to just another day. I heard a poet say his wrongs loud and strong and transparent humility as he begged, pleaded, cried, just let me see my son. I heard another say his ex's words were weapons with one target, his heart, a heart she coldly tore apart as she took aim at his most precious part, his connection to his children. Too many fathers wounded by too many women scorned. And this single mother's come to say that this shit's gone on too long. There seems to be a fallacy that needs to be laid to rest, that single mothers own all the rights to the children they possess. Are you crazy or just stupid? Or so blind you cannot see? Fathers are not disposable, but as necessary as maternity. They are not human condoms that leaked and need discarding. They are not wallets just for withdrawing. They are not convenient babysitters when we mothers want a break. They're equal genetic partners in a child that God has made. A mother owes her child the best chance at love and life, and whether that man broke your heart or never made you wife is irrelevant. Let me repeat, it doesn't matter a bit. He can be a great father and a lousy spouse. He can co-parent and not live in your house. He's not worthy just when he obeys. He's worthy because there's a dad-sized space in the heart of every child that a mother cannot fill. I'm not talking about abusers, but a true father's will. My father did not know for sure my sire, but he stepped up to the plate. His one desire to give all his maybe child required. My son's father abandoned them, but I was super mom. I moved right along. My sons don't need a man. Until I saw them latch on with vice grips to my new boyfriend. Their need for male energy so apparent, I vowed to never subvert that current. A father's love is not a mother's touch. It's not a woman's words. It's not a stage to rush through. It's an ingrained portion that leaves deep wounds. So selfish mothers, dig 2 tombs. 1 for the love that has died, and 1 for the child you are depriving. Pregnancy should have taught you this. For that child, everything is risked. Your pride, your whims, your self-centered pleas should take a back seat to that child's needs. And he should not hear you tear part of him down when you say his father's a bitch or a clown. And she should not hear lies told in vengeance and spite just because you won't grow up and do what's right. Killing a father-child bond should be heresy, but it happens too often. And that should not be. So as one single mother to the others, don't deny your child a good father. Without that father, your child would not be. So let bygones be history and admit what should be obvious to see. Fathers are vital, crucial, and necessary. Fathers are not disposable.
Damn. Because I remember sitting in the stage. I came to that show in support of Shawnee, because Shawnee had hit me and she was like, "Hey, can you press me some clothes?" And so I came to this show in support of her, and I didn't know that Neota Rise was performing as well. And when I heard that poem, the only thing that I could think of is on the reverse end. My wife and I are married. We've been married now for 2 years, and we had a kid earlier this year that he didn't make it. So I thought about that, and I was like, wow. I mean, not deprived of it, but never given a chance. And so when I heard that poem, I was just like, yeah, that's deep, because I was never given a chance. So, yeah, I was just that poem. And for me, I want to ask you in the next second how it is you go about memorizing, because when I've written poems before, the process of retaining it is something that I just have not mastered. So all the things that I've written in the past, I just, I would consider myself now at this very moment a page poet instead of a spoken word artist, because it just takes me so long to memorize everything. Even when I'm rehearsing for lines, it takes me forever. Lyrics to songs, it takes me forever. But in hearing that poem, I was just like, if there's a way that I could record it and just have it forever to listen to it, to give it along to people that I know need it. You know what I mean? Because there's so many people that should hear it but never will get a chance to hear it. So I said to myself, if she comes on the podcast, when she does, right? Because I remember after the show, I getting out of my shell, thinking that, people should, I'm John Ross the first. People should, approach me when they say I'm all this. I was like, nah, I got to go over and speak to her, shake her hand, introduce myself and ask her and tell her about the podcast and see if she'll come on and do that very piece. And yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. I love the poem.
Thank you.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
I love
Okay,
it.
so how do I memorize? First thing I do is I print out the poem. I write a lot on my phone.
Okay. As do I.
And so I cut and paste the poem into a Word document and I print it out. And then I underline all the words that to me are really impactful. They're going to be beats. They're going to be my stopping points when I'm memorizing the poem. And then I read it several times, just read it aloud several times. But the thing that has worked best for me, there are two things that's worked best for me. And I'm laughing because it's going to sound kind of funny. But I take that printout in the kitchen and I recite the poem while I cook. Because you're going to sit there and cook for 30 minutes to an hour a lot of times. And you keep saying it again and again. Many times by the time I finish cooking something, I will have memorized that poem.
Really?
Because I will have said it 10 to 15 times over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Another thing I do, I put a easy voice recorder on my phone.
Yeah.
And it's compatible with my Bluetooth in my car.
Yeah.
So what I do a lot of times is I'll hit play. I used to have this wonderful radio where I could hit play on the actual, screen there and it would work. Now I have to actually hit it on my phone and it goes to the Bluetooth, but I'll hit play and then I'll let it do autoplay, where it'll keep going and I'll be reciting it while I'm driving. So driving to work, driving home for me is almost an hour. Yeah. So if I say the poem, that whole drive there, that whole drive back, by the time I've memorized it. Yeah. That's an hour of practicing. But then I still practice in the mirror. I still practice, as I told you, a lot of times in the closet, just to get, it's the difference between memorizing it and being able to deliver it naturally. Yeah. Memorizing it is just the first step. Then you have to get more natural. To me, you have to get more natural with delivering it. Once you have it memorized. Yeah. So it still takes a little more practice. And usually even the first time I perform it, sometimes it's really smooth and sometimes it's perfect and other times it's not as smooth as I want it. Yeah. Normally it takes like that second or third time before it's super smooth and I'm, really comfortable with the piece.
Yeah, your poetry it doesn't seem like you're performing at all. And I think that's the thing I like about it. It doesn't seem like you're performing. It seems like as long as you can speak eloquently, then you could do poetry like you do it. Like I could do it like you do it if I spoke as eloquently in another time or space or whatever.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I have felt is a compliment, other people might not take it that way. I've done open mics all over the place and I've had a lot of people come up and say, I don't like poetry, but I like your shit. That's not poetry. Yeah. That's I don't know what it is. Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah. So I don't know what that means. I just know that it touches them. And then I've had two comedians who are on my show and have been on my show multiple times. And they will say, I'm a comedian, but I started writing poetry because of Zen. So I'm going to perform a piece for you guys. And they'll read it off their phone. And it'll be good. I mean, they'll be, they're like, I didn't even think I could write any poetry until I came to one of Zen's shows. And they were like, I got some shit to say too. I want to tell people, and they start. And that to me is wonderful too, because poetry should be for everybody. Not to say that everybody needs to perform, but everybody should be able to take whatever they're going through and write about it, and because it's healing, it's release, and in the Black community, we definitely need healthy releases. We keep too much stuff bottled up. We don't talk enough about meaningful things. Yeah. And we don't always deal with our emotions very well, you know. And
I agree.
So I was really happy. I felt it was a great honor for those two I call them poets. They were poets at that moment. For those two comics to perform poetry at my show for the very first time. And the fact that they felt comfortable. That's another thing that I really feel blessed. At my shows, people feel comfortable being vulnerable. You know, they feel comfortable really opening up to the audience, open up to the other artists, and just, you know, saying their truth. And so that's a beautiful thing too, because we don't have enough safe spaces in the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you find a safe space, you got to treasure that thing, because I don't know very many.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing when people say, you know, I feel so safe here. I feel like I can be myself, let my hair down. I can say this or that. And so that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So
I heard you mention educate. Were you at one time an educator?
I still am.
Where do you teach at?
I'm in the Aldine district.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you graduate from high school out there? Or are you from that side of town? Or are you from this side of town?
I grew up on the south side. I moved to the north side when I got married, and I went to school in HISD.
What high school?
I went to Lamar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I started teaching in Aldine. Well, actually, I did my student teaching at Hamilton Middle School years ago, 20-something years ago. And then I've been in Aldine ever since.
What do you teach?
Yeah. I teach English.
English.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that your major in college?
My major was English, yes.
Okay.
I started off as a business major.
Yeah.
Wasn't for me. But I ended up being an entrepreneur. My mom laughed, you know, I started my business. She had been trying. My mom has sold everything under the sun. Amway, Avon, Mary Kay, lingerie, Tupperware. If it can be sold, my mom sold it.
Yeah.
And she would always try to get me into it. And I told her, I'm not a salesman.
Uh-huh.
And I am now.
Yeah.
And when I told her I started a business, she goes, it was inevitable.
Yeah.
It's in your blood.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite hilarious. You know, God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I told that woman for, you know, like 25 years I was not a salesman, and you know, now I have shirts and merch and shows and all the stuff.
No doubt. What song's on your mind?
What song is on my mind? When you said that earlier, I was thinking the song "What's Going On," Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any particular reason?
I think there's always so much going on, and I think people are overwhelmed with everything that's going on. I think that's why we need escapes more than ever.
Yeah.
Because of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I recently walked into a Ryan Leslie interview, and I remember when Ryan Leslie was out back in the day with the whole Diamond Girl and everything. I remember that me and my brother were huge fans of his. We just loved the way he produced everything because we found out he was a Harvard graduate, and so the move into music and how he monopolized the game for that short period of time and publicly, we were just fascinated by. So I recently walked into his interview again, and I'm gonna say "Never Gonna Break Up" is one of the songs. But then "Talking to You," I'm gonna go off the Black Star album. I'm gonna do it. I said this one time, but "Knowledge of Self, Determination." I get that vibe when I'm sitting here talking to you. You mentioned something earlier, and it just triggered when you said something earlier about knowing yourself or Zen, whatever, however you worded it. I thought about that song, "Knowledge of Self," Black Star. So, a businesswoman. Why do you think it was important to get merchandise, sell clothes, merch, and all of that? Why did you dive into that?
Actually, there was.
I'm sorry, and the reason why I said it is because I think that the easiest way to market anything is visually. You know, so and wearing a shirt or just mainly clothes, just wearing a shirt is the easiest way. So I know why I do it. I'm just interested to hear why you would do it as well.
Well, I actually hadn't thought about it at first. I was just doing the show, and I was really happy with the show. And then there was a woman who was vending at my show, Darcy Cole, and she actually brought a shirt that said "Laughs and Lyrics" on it, and she had made the shirt as a gift for me. And I was like, wow. So I got a couple more from my co-host and her mom, And then I thought, I could sell these.
Mm.
And then when I came up with the mantra for my show, Laughs and Lyrics, get Zen, stay Zen, spread Zen, I wanted that on a shirt because, first off, it encapsulated the whole mission of everything I was doing. And I wanted people to take that with them. Get Zen, get focused, find those safe spaces, find those places where you feel at peace, find your community, find your tribe, find your village, and then stay Zen. You gotta, like you were talking about, running 2 miles, 3 miles, you gotta find those rituals that help you feed yourself, whether it's going to church, praying, reading great books, listening to affirmations, being around like-minded people. You got to stay Zen, and then you got to spread it because it's not just for you. Yeah. We all were put here to be a positive influence in the world. So, and then I was thinking, how much more of an impact there could be people just going on the web and they see that shirt and they get the message and they've never seen the show.
Yeah.
They're like, I can understand what that's saying.
Yeah.
Even though I've never been to Laughs and Lyrics. I don't even know who Zen Ase is. But I can get that shirt and I can be about that. And so that's kind of where that idea came from, that I could put out merchandise that had a positive message that reminded people of paths that they could take in life that would be positive paths, that would be actually impactful to our society. And so that's kind of where my goal for merch had come, that I wanted to put out merch that uplifted the culture, Black culture, the artistic culture, the culture of thinking. We have a lot of non-thinkers today.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I want people to think. I want them to reflect. I want them to reflect on their wellness.
Yeah.
Am I whole?
Mm-hmm.
Am I taking good care of myself?
Mm-hmm.
And we are so busy sometimes making a living, paying bills, running errands. We don't think about how we are until we have a heart attack or a stroke or whatever, something catastrophic happens. So I want people to stop and kind of think about, are you taking care of you?
Yeah. I also think that with the whole merch thing, I think that when you get to a point in your career where you acquire or attain, I should say, a following, I think that a lot of people like to be as close as possible as the people that they follow. And so if that artist is doing something, they find themselves always wanting to be a part no matter what, support no matter what. And I think sometimes that merch too brings the buyer, the consumer, a little closer to the creator in terms of, hey, I bought this shirt and there's a likelihood that he or she would wear this shirt, and just brings me a little closer to that person, my fan, or rather my favorite artist or whatever have you. So I think that merch does that as well. And I think, sometimes you just, when you realize it, like prime example, I can only imagine for you, you've created a show and then you just start to broaden out. You start to say, okay, well, I've created this show. What's next? Or what else can I do in this show? What else can I do to not only just expand my brand, but maybe even generate a couple of dollars here or there to make it, to reap the benefits of my.
Well, you said, what else can I do? I believe, and from the beginning I've always believed this, that everything is connected. So on the show, we've had single releases, we've had album releases, we had a book signing, we had a fashion show, we had Pure Justice come out and do basically a little 5-minute, if you have a record, you have been charged with something, we're going to have a free clinic with legal aid. We can possibly tell you if you can get your record expunged. Come on out, X date, X place. Anybody family, friends, relatives, we want everybody there so that we can try to get as many people helped with their records or criminal records as possible. So we've done that. We've done a coat drive. We've done a blanket drive. We did a outreach to the homeless. We did, what else? Toy drive. I'm leaving some stuff out. We did a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Through music, comedy, and poetry.
Yeah.
You have a platform. It's a platform. That's all it is. It's a platform. So I see people doing all kinds of different things in the community, and I want them to come. I want them to tell people what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, I can help you. I had a realtor come and talk to the audience, about home ownership and, home ownership and all that. And so, again, there's life, and life has many aspects. And so we can do edutainment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We can have a little 5-minute edutainment in there along with our poetry, comedy, and music. And so that's definitely been something that I've wanted to do. And last year, when Nipsey Hussle was killed, that was a really, really, really hard time for me because my son was shot, just the year before that. No, it was 2 years before that. And I could only imagine what his mother and his family was going through, because Nipsey Hussle and my son could be brothers, just their facial, everything. When I saw those pictures, I was like, and I had never really looked at him that way, but seeing, him in that situation, it just brought back all of those days and, in the emergency room and in the hospital room and all the days of recovery when they said my son wouldn't walk again. He might have a colostomy bag and all these things. I mean, God blessed us so much. He doesn't have any of those problems.
Yeah.
But it bothered me also that people were coming out and saying all these wonderful things about him after he's dead.
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't. I turned off the social media. I turned off the TV. I didn't want to hear any more about it. And then it kept bothering me. And I said, you know what? We have a lot of Black men that do so many amazing things and nobody says a thing. And I said, well, okay, I have a platform. I'm going to say something. So I put out a call on social media for people to nominate Black men, local men. We had like 14 areas. It was like Conroe, Spring, Pasadena, Houston, Missouri City, Pearland, just a bunch of different areas around Houston. To nominate an artist, an entrepreneur, an activist, and an educator. So there were 4 categories. And we only got, what was it? We got 14 nominations. I was kind of pissed. I was mad. 14 nominations.
Yeah.
In maybe about a month.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine. And then we did the voting, and we had the award show for the male luminaries, and you were actually nominated for an award.
Yeah. I think that Neota Rise told me that. Shout out to her, my Virgo sister. She told me that. And I was just like, I remember hearing that, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, finally. You know what I'm saying? Because, people give you want to be recognized like that once or twice in your life. When she told me that, I think that was the first time that I read your name, because I went looking for it. I was like, where? I want to see my name. Where? And I think that was the first time that I saw Zen Ase, and I didn't know who. I didn't have the picture of the person to associate that name with. But I remember Neota Rise told me that, and I was just excited. I was just like, I remember telling my wife, I kind of was like butterflies inside, like, oh wow, I've been nominated for something outside of school. So
yeah, and I wanted to give you this. So this is a certificate, for your nomination for a Luminary Entrepreneur 2019.
I appreciate it. I really do. I really appreciate it. I'm going to frame this and put it up in the wall in my classroom. to let the kids know it's possible.
Awesome. And
you know what I'm saying? I really appreciate it. I really, really do. I like I said, I mean, I don't think I could make it, and I haven't made it to a show of yours yet, but I just remember thinking, man, finally. I mean, I'm on this journey. I've been on this journey for so long, trying to write my own fate, make my own way. Because, I mean, I'm a college educated and all. My parents are college educated. But my parents, they believe that continuing education, being a doctor and a lawyer, an accountant, a pharmacist, that's what success looks like. And I can remember thinking back, being one of the black kids that won a hoop, and regretting to this day not playing football in high school, and just thinking if I had taken it seriously, that my father was just like, hey, learn to play the piano, how much music would come to mean to me later on in life. If I had taken it seriously and tried to do something other than sports, I could be further along now. But I just really think that this is my journey, this is my path, my purpose. And so I'm just and then moving along forward, just wanting to be acknowledged for the grind. Like I know I love to hear now that people, like, I don't even know how to react when people say, man, another episode, man, you're consistent. And I remember back in the day with the previous company, just almost being like a little envious that I saw consistency in everybody else. If I can, like, I hear a lot of people say I'm getting off of social medias too. I can't stop, comparing. I really don't compare like that on social media, because my journey is my journey, and I never know what somebody else went through to be able to get to that point. But I know that, in being an entrepreneur and wanting to put a project out to continue the journey on, not being able to do that was one of the things that was just like the knife in my back. It was just like, damn, how do I be more consistent? You know what I mean? And you find that, even in pressing T-shirts, creating a podcast, there's always somebody you got to go through to be able to further on your brand. And yeah, man, I just I'm appreciative when I look at this. I'm like, man, finally, fruits of your labor.
Well, the tagline for the show was Black Men Blaze.
Yeah.
And it was, Black men of excellence.
Yeah.
Men who were doing positive things in the community that were inspiring people. And there was a shirt created. This is actually the female version of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of see her being empowered.
Yeah.
She's kind of surrendering to a purpose greater than herself. The male version has, we all know the fist.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, his hand is turned and he's actually holding a flame.
Yeah.
Almost like the male Statue of Liberty kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's playing on that image of, power, especially Black power, but also the idea that this says lit to transmit, a fire to inspire, a light to ignite, luminous. So we all are lights. We all inspire people. We all can light a fire under people and enlighten them. So there's a lot of light imagery, of course, as a poet, I'm all about metaphors and stuff. And so, so there's a lot of metaphors in there, but so that's what it meant by being luminary. A luminary is someone who gives light.
Yeah.
And inspires and is passionate. Yeah. They're on fire for whatever they're doing. Yeah. And so, we're going to do it again this year. Okay. We'll have the male show around Father's Day.
Okay.
And, nominations will be going up about a month before then, so people can start thinking about, who they would want to nominate. And we want more than 14 people nominated this time.
And people would know to nominate, or people would know to make their nominations how?
I'm going to be putting out, we used a Google form last year. Basically, they had to click certain things. They had to click like where this person lived, put their social media, put a little paragraph about why they deserve to be recognized. What are they doing in the community? So there were questions that they kind of had to answer. There was a little paragraph kind of box that they could fill up. Yeah. And basically we sent a notification out to everybody that was nominated, and for them to send a picture so that we could create a second Google form after all the nominations came in after the deadline. And then we had voting online. Like for the women, we had over 8,000 votes come in. And we had over, we had over 43 women total nominated and over 8,000 votes. For the men, again, it was like 800 votes. It was like the women just blew you guys. But it was the women we did second. So there was the fact that we did the men on Malcolm X Day, May 19th. And then we did the women around Father's Day. So it was a month later. So there had been a lot of buzz, and that probably contributed to there being more turnout for the women. But yeah, I wanted the men to have more participation than we did, but it was still a beautiful thing. And I remember at the show, we did a full awards show with poetry, comedy, and music. We had the winners come up and we gave them a trophy and everything. And I am, as you put this out there, sponsors. I would like to be able to give gifts to every nominee. I would like companies to come up and say, I would like to donate shirts or a gift certificate or, a cash prize or whatever. We're not going to turn it down, So, we are going to be looking for sponsors to come up and we did a full color brochure, had all the pictures of the nominees on it, had all the sponsors. So you will be getting credit during the show. You'll be getting credit through the brochure. I'll be posting your information, all of the sponsors' information, so people can find out more about what you do, because we want to support local business, but we want local business to support people in the community that are doing positive things. So I definitely am looking for sponsors. We'll be looking also for vendors to vend at the show. But it was a beautiful thing at the show, because you said it. There was an artist at the show, and I was doing a lot of the hosting during that show, but he actually went into the back with the caterer, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, after you gave him his certificate, he was just back there in the back with me, and he was just trying to pull himself together. Yeah. Because he said nobody ever had said thank you or, I appreciate what you're doing. What you're doing matters. And he was like, he just was holding it and looking at the certificate like he didn't even know what to make of it. And on the one hand, that was beautiful. And on the other hand, I was like, God damn. Yeah. How do we let people get to this point where they've been doing this stuff for years and years and years, and nobody has ever said, you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt.
How do we do that?
For sure.
And it kind of bothered me, because I'm like, we got to do better as an artistic community, as a Black community. We're so quick to point fingers when people do something wrong. Yeah. And drag them through, and say all kinds of hateful things. But then the people that are doing things right, we just expect them to do it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And everybody wants to be appreciated, even if it's just a certificate, even if it's just a hand clap, a standing ovation, something, to say you are seen. Yeah, for sure. We see you.
For sure.
And we recognize that you don't have to do what you're doing. Yeah. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. You're doing it to be a positive impact. Yeah. And so it was a beautiful thing to be able to do that and to see the impact, because, when we did the men's show, it was much smaller than we did the women's show. Oh my gosh, the women were crying and I was like, this is beautiful, but these are some of those women were 50 years old, older than me, and nobody had ever said anything nice to them about what they were doing, and they had been doing this stuff for longer than I've been, doing anything, and it just, and I didn't know, I knew it when Nipsey Hussle died, I knew it, but I didn't really know it. When you see somebody breaking down over a certificate.
Yeah. Mm.
You know,
Giving them their flowers when they can smell them.
Yeah, it just. I'm trying to keep it together as the host of the show, and they making me want to just bawl and cry because I'm like, we got to do our people better than this. We gotta tell them that we love them.
Yeah,
they matter.
Yeah.
You know, and it was I felt so humbled, you know, and I felt so blessed to be able to do that. But I definitely want to do more this year. I want to be able to do nicer things for these people because, like I said, seeing what happened just with the little that we were able to do, you know, I know that now that we have more time and we have a little more, I guess you could say, knowledge about what we're trying to do, you know, I want it to definitely be bigger and better. And just make this, you know, maybe one day we'll be on BET Awards doing like a Black Girls Rock thing, you know, and having it televised, but just to say thank you, to say thank you to people is important. It's important to say thank you.
Yeah. Houston, Texas, this is what I want to do. I want to insert this clip. We'll be right back. You're watching episode number 44 of the What's Next podcast, a production of Still Visionary, Inc. Peace and blessings. What's going on, y'all? I hope everybody's blessed. It's a beautiful day to simplify some mathematics for you. My name is John Ross Dike I. And what I'll be doing on this new playlist is basically simplifying some steps. I wanted to come in and introduce myself as to just posting a video with no kind of formal introduction, okay? I teach math at Waltrip High School. That's a school here in Houston, Texas, all right? So if you're watching this outside of the great state of Texas, know that I'm an educator by day and a podcaster, actor by night, all right? This is my channel, the Still Visionary Inc. channel, but this playlist is entitled Simplified Steps, all right? So whatever you do, subscribe, all right? Subscribe. Tell a friend, especially if they're struggling in math, to check out my Simplified Steps playlist on my Still Visionary Inc. channel. Hey, and get ready to learn some math, all right? What you can do during this video is if you have any questions, go ahead and post the questions underneath the comment section of the video, right? You can stop the video, rewind it, stop it again, rewind it, and just ask me any other further questions that you would like me to explain, all right? I'm going to strictly stick to Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 for right now, okay? Calculus, I have to brush up on. Geometry, cool, I can do a little geometry. Pre-cal stats, I've got to brush up on. But predominantly Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry, some pre-algebra, I got you. I'm your guy. So if you have anybody that needs any kind of math help, refer them to Simplified Steps. Peace and blessings. Houston, Texas, we're back. Zen Ase today. Well, this is episode number 44. And as a math educator, because I teach math Monday through Fridays, and we're on Christmas break now, I think the number 44, it's a composite number. It's divisible by 22, 11, 4, and 2. I also think the number 44 represents President Barack Obama. Right. This being episode number 44, today being December the 22nd, 2019. We have 9 days left before the ball drops. What do you hope to attain in 9 days?
Well, I have done so much this year. I want to really reflect on everything that I've done this year, and I want to try to set up next year the best way I can to amplify what I've been able to do this year. Like I already mentioned that we're going into getting ready for the Luminary Awards for the men and the women. I want to get those Google Forms and things set up. I want to get the Eventbrite set up. I want people to already start buying tickets. I want to get sponsors lined up. I want to start getting all that together, getting, you know, artists together for the show and start preparing that.
I'll be a vendor.
Awesome.
I'll be a vendor.
Awesome.
Be a vendor.
I want to relax a little bit. This year has been a whirlwind of so many things.
Yeah.
I want to reflect on this year. I want to sit down and really think about write it down. Write down everything that I've actually accomplished, because sometimes we don't take stock of where we are and where we've been. I had my 36th show yesterday, and it was one of the most incredible shows that I've ever done, because we did winter solstice. I've never done winter solstice before. We had a drum circle. We had the burning of the sage. And we had libations to the ancestors. And it was beautiful to say, I am because they were. I can only be because they were. I owe whatever I accomplished to the people that came before me.
No doubt.
And I stand, there was a quote, I think Maya Angelou said it, I stand on the shoulders of greatness. So whatever I accomplish, I have to give credit to everybody that came before me. My mother, my father, my grandparents, they're all gone, you know. And then all of the people that sacrificed, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Maya Angelou and all the people that couldn't do what we're doing right now. They couldn't do this. Something as simple as talking. There was no space for them to do this. Nobody would let them do this. And to just, be so grateful that we can create our art and our merch and go out there and say our truth. And so I definitely want to take stock of everything I've accomplished and just always be so mindful that I owe a debt, to the children that are coming.
No doubt.
And to the people that already left.
No doubt.
And I cannot be selfish. I have to always be mindful that I owe. And that's not a burden. That's a joy, because I get strength from those two. I get strength from looking at the children that are coming and the potential that they have. And I definitely get strength from looking backwards and seeing if my ancestors could survive the Middle Passage, and I don't have nothing to complain about. As hard as life can be sometimes. And I'm not trying to minimize the fact we all have struggles. We all have struggles and pain and tragedy. But we come from greatness.
No doubt.
We come from greatness. And so I just want to, in this last 9 days, I really want to, more than any time before, I really want to think about, what I've accomplished, where I want to go, and just honor, the people that are before me and the people that are behind me, so that I am what I should be. To the best of my ability. I'm just a human being, but to the best of my ability, I'm trying to honor those two groups,
I ask that question often. Well, not often, but all the time on the podcast. What do people hope to attain in the remaining days in 2019? But in this very moment, I'm reminded that this is the end of the decade. And in 9 days, we start a new decade.
Yes.
So, I think that's an important question to visualize and begin to really ponder on. What do you hope to attain in 9 days? And so I've just been doing that for the past couple of years, just counting the days down, hoping to attain something that I didn't have at the beginning of the year. So there's a young lady following your steps. You mentioned paying forward and paying backward, but there's a young lady who's following in your steps, gets word of your poetry, gets word that you're an educator, but is just now starting her journey, okay? Whatever that journey is, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be just starting a platform to tell her truth and get the truth of others. What bit of advice are you going to give her to have her be successful in that?
I think the word success is a very tricky thing.
Okay.
I think that first you have to define what success is for you.
No doubt.
There are many shows out there. Somebody asked me what makes my show different. So what I would say to her is, first off, figure out who you are and stay true to that. You don't need to compete with anybody.
Yeah.
Because even though there are many, many shows out there, my show isn't about poetry, comedy, and music.
Yeah.
That's a tool. My show is about escape.
Yeah.
My show is about connection. My show is about inspiration and reflection. So if I get people to come and they have escaped from their daily life and been inspired and connected and feel a wonderful vibe, I've succeeded. If I didn't make a single dollar on that show, I've still succeeded. Now, by somebody else's definition, I might have failed.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my definition.
Yeah.
So I think everyone, especially people starting out, you have to define what success is for you. What is going to make you happy? What is going to make you feel like you've accomplished? And it may not be, somebody might say $150,000 is accomplishment. Somebody else might say $50,000 is accomplishment. Who's right? Both of them.
Yeah.
Somebody might say having enough to pay my bills is accomplishment.
Yeah.
Somebody else might say that's not even living. That's just survival. It's about what you need to make you happy. And so I would say to her, get crystal clear as much as you can, because the answer is going to change. As you grow, the answer is going to change.
No doubt.
Your boundaries should expand.
No doubt.
But starting out, what is success for you right now? What do you want to accomplish right now? And then focus on that. And then when you get that, and before you get it, let me even say that. Before you get it, when you see it's right there, set another goal. Because the worst thing that can happen is you get what you want, and then there's nothing to look forward to, and you feel let down.
Yeah.
Because what now? What do I do now?
Yeah.
So you always have to have that next thing. You always have to have, the next piece of merchandise, the next show, the next connection you want to make. I want to connect with 5 entrepreneurs. I want to get a sponsor for every show. I want to get more vendors, whatever it is, for you. Because I just had an incredible show. The show is over.
Yeah.
Now I've got 3 shows I'm planning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you always have to have that forward motion, because that's how you always feel alive. Because if you have that one goal and you don't have anything past that, as soon as you get it, you feel a letdown. So that's what I would say to her is don't care what other people say success is. Define it for yourself. Constantly be setting goals. And pat yourself on the back when you earn those goals, when you get there, even if it doesn't look the way you expected it to look.
Yeah.
Sometimes success doesn't look the way you expected it to look. So you have to take success as it comes and see that it has so many different flavors and varieties. That's what I would say. And just find joy, enjoy the journey, be balanced. There's a lot of things I could say.
Yeah. I can't let this episode end without a few things.
Okay.
Who are your top 3, and if you could stretch it past 3, who are your top 3 spoken word artists or poets? I can't let this episode end without asking you that.
Wow. I will say Kanai is one that I think is an amazing performer and an amazing host. Midas Touch is one of the most charismatic poets that I have ever met. Yours truly has some of the best metaphorical poems that I have ever heard. He has a poem called Water that will blow you away. Just incredible. Scott Free is beyond words.
And these are all Houston?
These are all Houston.
Okay. So you give me a Houston list. Give me a I guess, let's say, celebrity list as well of poets?
Well, I'll finish up the last two that
Okay,
were on my
go ahead,
mind.
go ahead, go
Goddess Fee
Okay.
has some beautiful poetry
She
that is very
performs.
inspiring. Yes.
She performs.
Yes.
Okay.
And Courtney Love, and then Yolan, definitely. Yolan was a luminary artist. And then the other two that were nominated luminary artists, Brother Malcolm and Siraj Rakim. Siraj Rakim does poetry over beats, so he actually does rap too. Celebrity. I would consider DJ Too Deep kind of a celebrity. He's a rapper as well as a poet. You know, if you ask him what he does, you say, is he a poet? He'll say something like that. You say, is he a rapper? He'll say something like that.
Yeah.
He's an incredible performer. And of course, there are Black Snow. I think everyone in Houston owes him a debt because he's been doing poetry for 25 years. Some people call him the godfather of poetry, especially in Houston. So in that sense, he's definitely a celebrity. And like I said, I mentioned being on the shoulders of greatness, you know. He's probably one of the first to sell out, you know, different arenas with poetry alone. You know, so those are the ones that come to mind. There's many, many, many others. You know, Lady 380 is a beautiful poet. She has some amazing pieces that definitely will touch anyone's heart. MC Lero, he actually won the Luminary Entrepreneur. He's an amazing poet, drummer. So there's so many that I could list that have personally touched me and I feel inspired by. So those are the ones that come to mind, you know, right off the top of my head.
No doubt. No doubt. So most importantly, the last question I'll ask you is, what's next for you immediately? What's next?
What's next for me? I have a show January 5th at Showtime Bar and Lounge. It's called 2020 Vision.
Okay.
And tickets are already on sale on Eventbrite. And, you know, so people can go and buy their tickets and come out for a great show. We're going to be starting the year off right. You know, starting the year off with poetry, comedy, music, inspiration, a great vibe.
That's a Sunday.
That's a Sunday.
Okay.
January 11th, we're actually doing a plus-size fashion show.
Okay.
Chunky, larger than life.
Okay.
It's all plus-size models, plus-size designers. I kind of talked about defining for yourself.
Yeah.
What you need to define for yourself. We need to define beauty for ourselves because a lot of Black women can't fit a certain standard. Our noses are not pointy.
Yeah.
You know, our hips are not narrow.
Yeah.
You know, we have voluptuous bodies. Even if we're absolutely thin, we still have voluptuous bodies. So, so we have that coming up. So those are the next two things on the agenda. And of course, like I already mentioned, the Luminary Show. I actually want to do an award. You know, I mentioned checking on yourself. One of the hardest things that I had to deal with this year, I had 3 tragic deaths, but the one that was the hardest to deal with for me was I've worked with over 100 artists in the city of Houston, but we had one that committed suicide.
Yeah.
And performers are actually known for substance abuse, reckless living, and suicide.
Yeah.
And I want to do something to honor him. You know, create an award in his honor. I'm still trying to think of how I want to do that. That's probably what I must be spending the next 9 days thinking about because I wanted to go into the new year kind of, in a sense, memorializing him because I don't want to ever lose another performer.
Yeah.
Especially not one that I know personally that was so young in his 20s.
Yeah.
You know, had his whole life ahead of him.
Rest in peace to him.
Yeah. So that's some of the things that are next. And I'm still thinking about exactly how I'm going to go about creating an award or creating something to honor him. You know, still bouncing ideas off the top of my head. So if anybody out there in podcast land has any ideas of how to, you can send them to, Facebook, Zen Ase Poetry. You can send me a message, DM me.
No doubt.
Because I'm definitely thinking about some ways to honor him and also just kind of put, I guess, a light on mental health and, even more than I have in the past.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So we talked about merch in the podcast. This is a personalized T-shirt that I make for every guest that comes on the podcast. I just wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to give a token of my appreciation for your time by giving you an exclusive black SVI T-shirt. Like I said, that I make only for people on the podcast. And I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you sitting with me for a while. And whenever you wear the shirt, just take a picture and send it to me because I want to post it on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I will definitely do that.
No doubt. Listen, today is the 22nd, episode 44. This episode is dropping on the 24th of December. Merry Christmas to everybody. 9 days into the ball drops. Houston, Texas, I do what I do for myself. Oh, by the way, pardon me. Shout out and happy birthday to my sister-in-law. She turned, I'm not going to give her age out, but I love you, Amber Renee Richardson. Shout out to my brother Michael Abajon, who had a birthday, to my boy Eve, who's going to have his birthday this coming week, to the rest of I think now we're in Capricorn season. We'll be in Capricorn season in a few days. By the time this episode drops, we'll be in Capricorn season. Happy birthday to all the Capricorns. 9 days into the ball drops. Houston, Texas, I do what I do for myself to prove that I can do it for others. Peace and blessings.
Yo, it feel like 95, Sachi on my body, Biggie, Jigger, Puffy, all that ballin' is a hobby. And I'm wildin' in my wallies, and them valleys, no Pilates. More way get you more wet, nah that's the Spumante. My crystal ball, I see crystal, I crystal y'all with that. I saw the sign like Ace of Spades, that Ace of Spades get cracked me like cheers to the money guys, the Willie niggas who buy them bottles, and then they spill these liquors. Yo, salute my dude. I see you, dawg. 5 bottles, 1 dick. Why I need 2 bras? I know I'm out of line, but love is shower time. You know it rose rain when your cloud is 9. Get off that high ass hussy. This a private party. Been on my dick too long. Your breath on private party. You gon' be nice and naughty. These walls on priceless Audi. This the upper crust. Fuck is up. Over and done. Overdose. Yes, we did it again. Sippin' with no remorse. We gon' do it again, and we gon' do it again.
What we doing again?
The most.